Welcome to the Off the Scale podcast, where we interview some of the leading names in the short-term rental industry. My name is Damian Sheridan, and today I'm delighted to speak to Alistair Handyside MBE and Executive Chair of PASC UK, the Professional Association of Self-Caterers in the UK. Welcome, Alistair. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Damian. Thank you. Lovely to see you. Okay, I'm going to cover that as quickly as I can across England, Wales and Scotland. But for that, I'm going to go off-piste and say the scale show that I went to last autumn, winter was the best property manager show that I have ever attended by a country mile. I'm not paid to plug. I've only ever met Damian at that show before. It was first class, absolutely content rich. What more can I say? You get to a lot of places with a huge amount of selling. There was a lot of really rich content here. So please, when they call the next date, get yourselves there. I'm not going to miss it, that's for sure. So there you go, gentle plug for a great group of people. Right, statutory registration. Unfortunately, I need to answer this in three ways: Scotland, Wales and England, because all three governments are doing it differently. I suspect most of you are probably in England. I will start there. England, the statutory registration scheme is being built at the moment. The department that's building it is called DCMS, the Department of Culture, Media and Sport. They have commissioned the software. We have seen what the software looks like, and it very much looks like all of your owners will be required to, or you on their behalf, will have to upload some significant documents in order to get a registration number in order to continue to advertise. So it's not a licensing scheme. If you upload the documents, you will get the number, you will be able to continue advertising. At the moment, it looks like the documents will be a fire risk assessment, a gas certificate, if a gas certificate is required, and some kind of electrical document. So nothing like Scotland, and it will be relatively inexpensive. So nothing like Scotland. So not terribly invasive. The law states very clearly that we have to have a written fire risk assessment. The law states very clearly that you have to have a gas certificate. So this is not invasive, and it'll stop a lot of casuals and well, it's going to harden room rates and it's going to increase occupancy if it goes right. So let's treat that one as good news. Scotland is in place now, is massively invasive, huge amount of information required. But if you get your information and your owner has that information, it is possible to upload it quite quickly. I have seen a recording that Robert Kennedy at Super Control did for me for his building, his properties, which are lovely, by the way, plug for them too. It took him as a 15-minute recording, a Zoom recording he did for me, by getting all your documents in one place. Once you know you've got to have them, it was pretty ghastly, to be honest, because it was your water testing certificate and your Legionnaire certificate, but still possible. Biggest problem in Scotland is each council charges a different price. It's a 3-year period. It can be very expensive. The highest price we've seen in Scotland is £6,000 for 3 years. We've seen £400 for 3 years. So it varies by how much councils like tourism, which doesn't seem very equitable to us. But that's a warning for you in Scotland. I'll do another shameless plug. If you're in Scotland, you need to join the ASSC, the Association of Scottish Self-Caterers, because they know the intricacies of all of that in Scotland. PASC covers England and Wales. ASSC covers Scotland, and it's different enough to need two associations to deal with that. Wales, they have just introduced the legislation for a registration bill. The registration in Wales, to start with, is merely so they can apply a levy. So there's no information required other than your property details and your name and address. They won't be asking for fire, gas, electricity or anything in the early doors. All it is to create a register to make sure all of your owners are registered so they can apply the levy, which is what I'm probably going to be coming on to next. So the registration in England is light touch and manageable. In Scotland, it's heavy touch, but possibly manageable if you can get your owners organised. Wales, a little bit unknown at the moment. Okay, I'm not going to spook anybody. There are no known current plans for a tourism levy in England. The Chancellor has repeatedly rebutted any asks for it from mayors and from people saying there's enough tax at the moment. And if you look at the optics on the government's tax regime that they've introduced since they came into power, you can see why she probably doesn't want to introduce any more right now. So in England, we're probably years away from it. In Wales, it's proposed to come in 2027 and is a per person per night levy that we're pushing back very heavily on. It's a very regressive tax. For those of you that need an explanation of that, by taxing children as well on a per person per night tax, it means the people who are the poorest and the people who go to the least expensive accommodation pay the highest rate, and the richest people that go just as a couple to the most expensive accommodation pay very little at all. So we're very opposed to that. We also have no guarantees that the money raised will go to tourism. If you're going to raise a tourism tax, let's see it spent on tourism and benefiting all that are in it. Scotland, of course, has done this on, on drugs, basically. The system in Scotland is dire. Every council can set its own levy rate. So you're getting levy rates varying to, very high percentages, 9%. So each council can set their own in Scotland. That's live now. You had to start charging it from next year. So that is going live in Scotland next year. So if you've got thinking of expanding into Scotland or in Scotland again, I strongly recommend that you liaise with Fiona Campbell at the ASSC about how to try and work within this. There is massive pushback in Scotland. To call their introduction of the levy a car crash would be the underestimate of the decade. Levies can work. I have a great friend, a guy called Nick Brooks-Sykes, who runs Visit Manchester. They've introduced what's called a T-bid, which is a tourism business interest district in Manchester, which is where businesses elect to have a levy, where they collect £1 a night per room, and then the businesses sit down together with the council and work out how that money could be best spent in the best interest of the visitor economy in that city. And guess what? Done like that, it works. Done like it's being done in Scotland, perhaps not. So that's a quick canter through levies. I'll give you details at the end about how you can find more information on those so that we can move on. The English and fire regulations are essentially the same. There's a minor detail change in that in England it says you can have a fire extinguisher if you want in small, simple accommodation, and in Wales they say don't. The whole logic of the fire regs in England and Wales is to get the guest out quickly. Everything, if you read the guidance and come to understand the guidance, as I've had to over the last 2 years, it's about getting guests out quickly. So that's once you understand the DNA of something, sometimes it's easier to address it. That's why it's things like thumb latch locks on the way out, so you don't have to find the key to get out. That's why it's illuminated stairwells where there's no ambient light. That's why they're there. It's to get people out. We don't want them fighting fires. You don't want them fighting fires. That's what your insurance is for. So in England and Wales, there is what's called the Small Paying Guest Guide, and that is just been updated and is a pretty good guide. Compared to the old one, it's a pretty good guide. If your property fits into that, you are easily able to get your owners to write their own fire risk assessments, essentially. If it's outside that guide, it gets more complicated. So we'll just focus on the first one first. So anything that has got 4 or less bedrooms, is no more than 2-storey, does not have an open plan exit. I will try and explain that without doing a fire webinar. This is where the only way you can get out of the building is to go out past a major fire source. That is a log burning stove, that is a cooker. So if you come down and the only way out of the building is through the kitchen, then you start to have more problems, and you have to go to what's called the Sleeping Accommodation Guide, which is much more complicated and aimed at bigger buildings. PASC has a whole range of free guidance on this on the free side of the website. There's webinars you can watch, there's papers you can download, they're all free. All the fire stuff we do is free, okay? So you can navigate it, but just the more complicated the building, you start going to a 3 or 4 store building, it starts to get much more difficult, and mitigation becomes much more expensive, and you start talking about misting, emergency lighting, and those fire alarms. Again, I don't want to do a fire webinar, but we don't have to have in our self-catering properties here fire alarm buttons where you actually press an alarm button like you would if you went into a pub or a hotel. When you get to multi-stories, these kind of things come into play. We've got papers on all of those. But for your normal, smaller property, it's not that bad, okay? It's a fire alarm in every room that are linked together. Reason for that is a fire can start anywhere. It alerts everybody at the same time, loudly. Everybody gets out the building. Signage, if it's complicated, no need for signage if it's not. So there's a lot of common sense in it. And a lot of people push back on it, but essentially it's the law, and you have to have a written fire risk assessment. Your owners, as the responsible person, they're called RPs, have to do one by law. They had to publish it by the 23rd of October 2023. So they've had some time to do this now. If you're going for a more complicated building, it is strongly recommended that you do a recommended fire risk assessor. How they can find them, there is a paper with a list of how you can find them on the PASC website as well. In Scotland, it is all slightly different in terms of they're not quite in the same space as we are in trying to get out quickly. But again, you have to have a fire risk assessment in order to get a short-term license. So again, you'll need to have knowledge of how the fire system works up there. Okay, and we believe that a fire risk assessment will be a document that you will need to upload to get a registration number in England, and we believe the same will be the case in Wales. So your owners need to be getting on with this. If any of you are members, you'll have been on past members meetings where we try and say, you know, a lot of your members push back on this and say, I don't want to do it. And if you make me do it, I'll just leave you and I'll go to Airbnb. You know, yes, of course, that's a pressure point. And you need to think about how your terms and conditions work in conjunction with that. Our agency members have all the legal advice written down on how to deal with this, but I will give you the shortest possible summary. If you're operating like Airbnb, and you make no checks of the building, and you don't ask for any checks on the building, and you just advertise it, and your terms and conditions say, I don't check the building, you're booking it at your own risk, and you get that legally checked by a solicitor, then you have no obligations at all. If we now sweep to the other extreme, and you've got some foreign owners who say to you, hi, you manage it for me, you pay the bills, you get it sorted, you do what you need to do, you just send me the balance. And you go in there and you manage the cleaning, the changeovers, the repairs, the maintenance, the alarms. You have just become a responsible person. So you need to make sure at that extreme that you are absolutely all over that, because you have taken on the duty of care. So I've given you the two extremes. There is a Rubicon that you pass somewhere in the middle. I bet a lot of you can work out approximately where that is. It's where you start really advising the owner on what to do. The level playing field will come when even Airbnb have to put a registration number on their website, because the owner has to have a fire risk assessment. So I wouldn't burn bridges with people unless you know their property is lethal. There you go. There's a bit of common sense advice on fire. Okay, right. You saved the best to last, haven't you, Damian? HMRC reporting is part of an international piece of legislation. When I say international, I should really have said global. It comes under something called DAC 7, and this is because of the explosion of what's called the gig economy. This is trying to track down owners' earnings on intermediary websites. This applies to Uber, this as a driver. This applies to Just Eat. This applies to eBay. This applies to all of those intermediary sites and yours. Okay, so if you are advertising a property at one price and passing on some of that to an owner, you need to report the owner's earnings directly to HMRC. This is called HMRC Intermediaries Reporting. That was required to start from January the 31st, 2025. So 2 weeks ago, it was live, and everybody needs to be doing it from that time. It's quite complicated, as you can imagine, because you're trying to keep secure data on one side. I mean, you've basically got your customers' bank details, you've got your customers' tax information number, you've got their national insurance number, you've got the lot, and you're saying how much money they're transferring. So there are some real issues here, but you have to report it to HMRC. The UK was one of the last. They've been doing this in Europe post-COVID. They've been doing it in places like America even before that. So there's no pushback on this. I haven't wasted any time lobbying against it because this is a tsunami. This is not a local intervention. This is a global one. Okay. So you have to upload your documents in an XML schema, which some are more challenged by than others. PASC has been supporting its agency members through this for the last year. We've got guidance on it, we've got FAQs on it, and we've got people that are able to help ask questions. Those sirs and ladies out there is a member support package. That's if you're an agency member. We can't support the whole sector on doing it because it's very time consuming. From now on, you may well be fined if you are found not uploading your information by HMRC. This is an absolute legal legislated requirement for you to do so. When I brought it up at the Scale conference in November, I think it was November, 3/4 of the room hadn't heard of it. I can guarantee you we've helped loads and loads of people over the line on that. It is possible to do so. Many of you, and I'm not meaning anything by this, don't have 25,000 owners to get the information from. We've even got a Word document that you send to your owners to get the information and explain why it's not you asking for it, it's the law asking for it, and you need to do it. It doesn't say that you can't advertise owners who won't give you the information. It implies it, but it doesn't say it at this stage. I think that will come down the line. And if you can't get some information from owners, we've got the information that you can put, TBA in the thing. If the owner won't give you his date of birth, and you can't verify his date of birth, then there are ways in which you can get less information than at first appears. It's the money they're interested in, as you can probably all imagine. So that's HMRC reporting. As I said, we have a package of support on that as PASC, but that is for agency members because it is very time consuming to do it. It's complicated, basically. I want to say two positive things, right? One is that once they actually get all of the data about how much all of us are making, we're all millionaires in their minds at the moment. But once they get the real data about what this sector is worth, and they can count that when they get statutory registration, they can see how many businesses, and they'll get a sense of how many businesses, how many people are employed. I think that will give us an opportunity to turn that into a force for good and show just how dynamic and valuable a sector we are. So whilst it's painful and whilst we'd rather not do any of it if we were given the choice, perhaps, actually it's going to happen. We turn it into a benefit to make it better for all of us that operate in the sector. So we get rid of the rank cowboys. We will get higher average daily rates. We will get higher occupancy. So whilst I said the licensing scheme was a bit car crashy in Scotland, go and talk to someone who's got through it and they're making more money and they're making more profit. Okay, so, sometimes we've got to look at what's just a bit beyond the horizon on these things and take it as a benefit. So I said that at the end of my bit at the Scale conference. There's a great business 18 months out. We're suddenly going to start seeing this to be completely different. The people who can't take the heat, they'll be gone. And it'll be the people who can take the heat who reap the dividends. So that's one thing. But it doesn't stop. I have created an infographic this week, which we'll be putting out there on social media and in newsletters. There are 20 interventions, tax and regulatory, by the English and Welsh government alone on the short-term rental sector currently. 20 that we are working on, every single one of them, right? That is an insanity level. But eventually they will pass and be in whatever form that they end up in, and we will just try and mitigate and make those the best that we can. All right. So that's why I'm saying it's sort of 18 months away. But the newest one is energy performance certificates, which now they have just said just before Christmas that short-term lets will have to have an energy performance certificate. Currently, we have an exemption, which we got about 10 years ago. So we've enjoyed that exemption, never discussed it, never come up in any meeting I've ever been anywhere. And now it's first and foremost because it's going to be pretty horrible. So we are massively working on that to try and get exemptions for older buildings, for glamping, for buildings that are limited by planning, for all the usual stuff that we do, and to try and push back on it. But it is coming for self-catering, which means that your owners in the future will have to comply to a new EPC regime, not the current one. So don't get them doing anything on it now, because if you get an EPC now, I just don't think it's going to have any bearing on the new one, because they're reinventing the regime. And then we will help Damian and Scale explain what you need to do at that point. So I'm just saying you do need to keep your eyes open. You're mainly agencies. So again, I think that because you want to look as if you're knowledgeable to your owners and you've got their backs and you're looking after them, it's a sales pitch if you like, but you could do a lot worse than join PASC as an agency member. With the support, legal, tax, papers are honestly worth their weight in gold. I would say that, wouldn't I? But ask some agencies, I can give you references. There's so much going on with the way that you have your own website maybe, and you advertise also on Airbnb, so you have a double commission. There's hugely complicated VAT consequences of doing that, which we are currently paying about £20,000 for the tax advice, so we can give that to our agency members to make sure they don't get caught out. So you would get that kind of thing as part of membership. So we're really trying to help protect you so that you can focus on getting bookings, so that you can earn your commissions and you can keep your owners happy. Like I said, love working with Scale, great team. Is it where you're having it in Manchester?
In Manchester in November.
You're making sure that you're in touch with the Great North this time.
Exactly. Yes.
I can't wait. So there you go, Damian. Thank you, and I wish you all the best with your plans for the show and the conference. And if anybody's got any questions, please let me know.